Welcome back to Resilience plus Rise, the space where we excavate the extraordinary from the heart of the challenge. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, and if you're feeling the pull towards a deeper purpose, a more impactful legacy, beyond the peaks, or working towards it, you're in the right place. Because just like 26.2 transformative miles I explore in my book, life's most significant changes or chapters often begin when we dare to define our finish line. And yes, it's a bestseller and it's available to buy. Today's guest, Mike Durnin. What do I say? There are some people who come, and when we have a conversation, you know that there is a far more deep impact that they create. And Mike has been one of them. I just had just few days back a conversation with Mike, and I just could feel a sense of change. This happens when you are true to the person that you are. He defines living life is a transformation of self and to others to be better. He's a dynamic speaker, a coaching mentor. He combines his life experience and academic research to assist one and all as they strive to be the best version of themselves. He has redefined what his life has to be, moving away from the academic space. He's now grown to be a shoulder that people can turn to and listen what's happening around. So, without taking more of your time, Mike, welcome to Resilience plus Rise, the podcast.
Well, Thomas, thank you very much. I am honored and humbled to be here today with you on Resilience plus Rise. I love the title of your podcast, and I
Thank you.
love the message that you are sending to people because we know in our lives, setbacks and challenges are inevitable. They are going to be there. Yet when we embrace those situations, we actually form a fusion between the chaos that is happening and the order in our lives to become stronger people, to become a stronger us. And when we have the opportunity to lead others and we demonstrate this embracing of chaos and order, we actually allow for teams and organizations to become stronger. So it is truly an honor here to be here with you today, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Mike. So, Mike, I will directly jump into the meat of this entire thing. You've been having a academic background, and also you have been a coach, and you have been working around with various personality. But in my podcast, usually, and my life philosophy is that our purpose usually comes when we dive deep within ourselves or when we see some other people or some happenings taking place and we pivot towards a greater purpose or a goal. I wouldn't even say a greater purpose, a purpose that is true to our calling. So, what made Mike the academic to move into the Mike, the human element that encompasses humanity or the community together?
Great question. And, I think as somebody who's probably a little further along in their years, there's probably been multiple events, crucible events that have happened, unplanned, unforeseen, that have helped in my direction as I've gone forward in my life. Yet I can easily look back, I think that there is one event that still resonates very much in my life. It has happened in 2010. As at the time, I was serving as the head football coach in Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. And we had a great young man, still a great young man, who was a freshman for us. I had recruited him. He had come to play. He was a backup defensive back. He was playing special teams. And October 16th of 2010, he is running down the football field. We had just scored. He's on the kickoff team. He goes in to make the tackle, makes the tackle, and then lies motionless on the field. At that moment, life changed for Chris, for his family, for myself, for our coaching staff, our team, the campus community, the Decorah, Iowa community, the Bondurant, Iowa community where Chris was originally from. Because what had happened was Chris had actually fractured C3 and C4 in the spinal cord. And later that day, and I still remember, there's certain aspects. There was silence when this happened. Later, through about another half an hour, 45 minutes, wherever it was, time actually kind of stood still for a while, not knowing what was going to happen. But I remember afterwards, after the game was actually over, as I'm talking to the team and really searching for words so that we could stay together, you could hear a helicopter flying over Decorah. Well, Decorah is a small town. That helicopter, we knew, was Chris being life flighted to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And I still remember going to that hospital that night. And my wife and I are walking down this hallway to the waiting room. And all I could see was one figure. And it was actually Chris's mom. The same mom who 7 months earlier, when we're recruiting Chris, I'm sitting with her and a couple other moms at lunch while Chris and some other recruits were with our athletes. And as every coach in America has done, you basically promise that mom you'll do everything you can to help a young man grow, but also take care of him. And as I'm walking down the hallway, I flash back to that luncheon. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this woman going to do when I get up to her? Is she going to turn around and hit me, which I probably wouldn't have blamed her? Was she going to yell, curse me out? Probably would not have blamed her for that either. But she turned, looked at me, gave me a hug, and said, Mike, the doctors are saying Chris only has a 3% chance of movement below his neck. But we're going to believe in that 3%. The power, as your podcast is termed resilience and rise, the power of attitude is so important for us to be able to embrace and to handle the chaos, those crucible events. And Chris and his family, yes, that was a tragic event, but they have never allowed that event to be a tragedy. And through this whole experience, Chris, and he talks about being able to stand up, though he is basically confined to a wheelchair and needs assistance to stand, he talks about standing up to the situations that are presented in our lives, which we have no control over in our lives. And that message has resonated, has become a part Chris, his family, his friends, myself, everybody who was there that day and has heard this story, we continue to embrace the chaos that happened that day, that crucible event, and make that a transformation for us to be a better version of ourselves.
Wow. There are sometimes some of the podcasts when I hear, I'm just no words come out, and no words can come across. But guys, here who we are talking about is none other than Chris Norton, who has the book which is written as the longest seven longest yards. Chris Norton along with Emily Norton, and it is also a movie on Amazon Prime. So do watch it. I will be putting out the links in our podcast over here. So what I just heard, Mike, is that whether no, I should not use that word, but Chris changed on October 2010. You changed during that time. And what I hear is again one of my favorite ideologies that life is not happening to me, but it's happening for me.
Yeah.
And I, when during our conversation last time, you mentioned is that based on what has been happening, uh, what you have taken on the purpose, I would say repurposing your own self
Yep.
and using, not using, but working along with Chris. You all have started an organization which helps people to believe in their
Yep.
own self. So, guys, just imagine when we talk about 3% chance. Yes, I have had guests who had 1% of chance of their legs being put across, but just think neck down. You're not in the, you're just around 18, 19, maybe not even reached your 20s, not seeing what life is all about, and it breaks you literally, physically, emotionally, mentally, maybe even spiritually. But y'all have taken it a step further wherein it does resonate that life is happening for me. What can I do to help the community? As I always say, is that we are angels with one wing. When we hold another, that's when we fly higher. I've gone through your websites, I've gone through the work that you do. So, can you just tell about
Yeah.
the
Sure. You know, what Chris realized, and when this injury happened, of course, it happened in an NCAA football game. It was an NCAA sponsored event. And as such, Chris actually was afforded what is considered catastrophic, lifetime catastrophic insurance. So Chris could stay a little bit longer, take more therapy, what things that they needed as he needed and his family needed for him to kind of lead as normal a life as possible. Chris realized he was actually very fortunate. And there are so many people that he came to meet that were not that fortunate. And Chris's mindset and the mindset of his father and his family was we need to do something to help others. So the Chris Norton Foundation came into being to help others who were experiencing spinal cord or neuromuscular challenges. And what we have done is form this group, this foundation, whereby we fundraise money, which to date we've raised over $2 million,
wow,
and we service grants that come to us from rehab facilities that need some extra equipment to help people with spinal cord injuries, make some equipment more available to others. But then one of the greatest things I think we have done is we started a camp. And in this camp, we will bring in 25 to 30 young people who basically live their lives in a wheelchair, and provide them along with their families. So any family members also can come along, provide them with experiences such as horseback riding, zip lining, laser tag, you know, play basketball, learn how to play tennis. Now there's some other, you know, uh, things we do, but it is a unbelievable week-long, all expense paid experience for these young people and their families. And it really has become a community, because we all know if we are to proficiently embrace the chaos in our lives, we need others.
Of course.
And you need others that have technical, you know, capabilities that can help you, but you also need others who are there to encourage, to listen to you, to be by your side. And that's what this camp has also done. And you know, we're very fortunate. Our camp happens again in 2 weeks in Rochester. We do it every June there.
Okay.
And thanks to the great people at Ironwood Christian Ranch who helps, you know, run the camp. We basically just kind of, here's the money and here you go. But Chris will be there. Chris and Emily and all their adopted children will be there to help in the camp. I'll be there as the president of the foundation, just to be a part of it. And to me, it is so uplifting, you know, to be around all these people. Yes, they have difficulties. Yes, there are days where there are doubts. Yes, there are days with lots of questions. And but through that all, there is a spirit of togetherness. There's a spirit of people who are there to uplift others. And for me, it is one of the most beautiful weeks of the year.
Wonderful. So, guys, if you all know about people who have been challenged in life due to spinal cord injury or the muscular challenges, and you know the pains or the challenges that they're going through, here we have got a camp that helps people to push themselves further, to be freer, to unleash their potential, what they believe has been in its own way hindered maybe by their challenges.
Yep.
If this part of the story does resonate with you, as I mentioned, I will be putting out the links in the comment. Do open those websites. If there's something deep within your heart you want to help the foundation, please feel free to dig in and help another human. So I leave it to you in your judgment, what feels right. Mike, on another note, as you have been a coach mentor, and again, thank you for that element which has just taken place. I would should be contacting Chris soon, and so that I could get him also to talk about what's the passion behind the Chris Norton Foundation, wherein he believes in, like, everybody's got the strength, everybody has got the willpower. It is just standing up, and y'all standing with them.
Yep.
So here I would get to the next particular point, which you're absolutely passionate about, is when you talk to people, you talk about breaking down the walls.
Yep.
You always use the word chaotic, or one of the words which you had used was chaotic world. You have also said about empowering yourself in the journey. Can you tell a little more about that, what you believe in, and how that has provided light to many?
Sure. You know, the term chaotic world actually was first coined by a gentleman named D. Hawk, who was the CEO of Visa. Now, of course, we all know what Visa is because most of us have one of those cards in the back pocket that we use quite often. But it talks about that fusion of chaos and order. And Chris's situation, that experience, I had already been working on, okay, what are some of the tools you need to go through and be able to best handle the chaos that happens. And so basically I think about 5 tools. The first tool is staying calm. And one of the best ways of staying calm is knowing ahead of time that chaos could happen at any point. And so you prepare yourself not to be a negative, but saying, I will look to stay calm no matter what. And this really helped as I went further in my career and ended up as a dean of student formation. I was in the C-suite level of higher education. And so I was responsible for chaos that happened on campus. And so when things happen, I just kind of knew, all right, here's your opportunity. Stay calm so you can model that for others so they know. The second tool is the realization you're going to need others. None of us are on this pilgrimage of life without others in our lives. And some people are there to help us. Some people are there to help those that are helping us. Some people are there simply to encourage and to listen. And yet we also need to know we need to be ready to step into any of those roles as well for others in our lives. That's servant leadership at its finest. Then you also need what I term the no matter what mindset. That is that mindset where you have that conviction of purpose that stays at the forefront. So when you're making decisions, when you're taking on these chaotic situations,
Hmm.
you don't lose sight of what that purpose is. And we need that. I think great leaders, when you study great leaders, that's what they all basically, took on. And you and I have talked about, Nelson Mandela is one of the greatest leaders of all time. He spent 27 years in prison, but never lost sight of what his purpose really was. And that was to have a better world for people in South Africa. And to me, that's a great illustration of what the no matter what mindset is. Then the fourth tool is the mentality, the ability to go and then some. They always say go the extra mile because it's less crowded. Most people will stop because it becomes difficult. We need to be able to go and then some. And that's not easy to do. It's simple to say, but not easy to do. And we need to be able to do that to be successful.
Hmm.
And then the fifth tool goes back to what I kind of already touched on. It's that positive attitude and effort. Those are the two things we really control every day in our lives. We have a choice there of what our attitude will be and what our efforts will be. And when we have a great positive attitude and a great positive effort going forward, our actions will lead to accomplishments. And so those are the 5 tools that I believe, and that's what I really try to work with people, teach people to do, is how to embrace those tools. I'm one of those simple people. I like to keep things simple. All right. So those 5 tools, they're not easy, but they are simple to remember. And I think they really lead to us being in a better place. And those tools help us build a foundation for leading ourselves, leading our lives, which, if applicable, the foundation to leading others. And that foundation is what I like to call my handful of L's.
I'll be coming to that. I will be coming to that. But before that, Mike, you mentioned about staying calm, staying positive, and taking it on and looking at it. But usually, when life throws at you a curveball, okay, there are time and again I remember to keep that ideology that what was told by Viktor Frankl, between the stimuli and the response there is a space, and it's in that space where you have the freedom to choose. But sometimes that space becomes a blur, we forget because we are lost in how the societal way has painted our environment.
Yep.
Poor me, because out of 10 people, maybe it's a generalization, but out of 10 people, 9 of them would either put themselves as a victim or a martyr. If there was one point you could take in case something happens, a challenge, it could be a loss of a loved one, it could be a financial downfall, it could be anything that is happening around. And in fact, chaotic, though I am positive, but the way I see at times the world, there is a lot of rumbling around, a lot of unsteadiness. What it's easy to say, take a breath, pause, but sometimes our minds are way more faster than that pause. So, what do you? I don't ask the word advice because I myself I don't like when somebody's advising me. But what are the suggestions that you would give to somebody who's just hit with a blow where it hurts the most?
It's a great question. And, as I talked about with others, it's that noise that surrounds us, that takes us away. And for various people, and I think this is really, it's up to the person. What's best for that person? Mel Robbins talks about, the five,
Nice.
right?
Yes.
Five, five, four, three, two, one. If that works for you, great. Some people, they talk about you take that moment to self-reflect. And, we need to become silent. Well, the letters that spell out silent, if you rearrange them, they spell listen. And when we listen like a sponge is what I say, the answers many times will come to us. But then we have to, and yes, I have a doctorate in ministry, so I will use some scripture here. We walk by faith, not by sight.
True.
And it's from 2 Corinthians 5:7. And when we walk by faith, that's that conviction for that purpose that is out there, that is far beyond our current situation. And like I said, people do it in different ways. I mean, my go-to
Hmm.
to get rid of noise is actually the exercise. Now, I used to, like you, run some marathons, but now age and my knees have kind of said, no, that's not probably a good idea. So I jump on an elliptical, or I'll go swim, you know, for 1,000 meters or 1,500 meters, just to get away, to take some quiet time where I do not look at my phone. I do not look at a screen when I'm doing those things. And it allows me the opportunity to sit back and reflect. So I think for every single person, it might be a little bit different, but I will challenge people to find a mechanism that they use to do exactly what you just talked about. How do you get rid of that noise? To allow you the opportunity to have a learning experience and have a stepping stone to move on in your life.
Hmm. Actually, when you mentioned about having the faith and just moving forward, that gets me to Steve Jobs in his comments, the speech 1984. first towards the Stanford students. He said, "You you can't connect the dots by looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards." So when you reach a point in hindsight, and when you look, okay, this happened, and that's the reason I'm over here, taking the next step and the next step. Okay, let's pivot again. So, guys, I mentioned I had met Mike some a while back, and I mentioned there was some things at times when you talk to a person and it just you see life differently. Though I profess, the word is profess, that I have been a voracious reader, I'm an author of a best-selling book, whatever the thing is. But there are times wherein he used a word simple, and also he mentioned about the five simple L, L as in Lima, what it signifies. If there's nothing to take away from this conversation, I request you to listen to what the five L's are. Make it a part of your everyday existence. I have started using it. And yes, I am positive. I try to be calm and I do allow the breathing techniques to come in. But when I'm consciously talking about the five L's, which Mike will talk about, let's go for it.
Sure. Well, as I said, one of the things that I really believe in, and Chris's situation just kind of amplified the whole aspect of having a foundation for leading our lives. And I've used the analogy a lot of times, you know, if we think about the nursery rhyme with the three little pigs and the big bad wolf, one pig builds a house in straw, one does sticks, and one does the brick. Okay. And the big bad wolf, which is inevitable, that's the chaos, that's the setbacks, the challenges we face. Who is best prepared to handle the big bad wolf? Well, the pig that built the house in brick. They had a great foundation to move forward. And as I thought about that, and I started working with people, it's okay, how can we make this simple? And that's where the handful of L's come in. And I truly believe there's lots of leadership development that is very
Mhm.
specific to different industries, et cetera. And they're great, great avenues. But I think it starts with this foundation. And the first L, continue to learn. You are a reference, Thomas, in terms of going back. What did I learn from this situation? And you talked about being a reader and finding out different, stories that people who have experienced, things in their lives, how they have gone forward. When we continue to learn, and I talk to people, 15 minutes a day of reading, or listen to a TED Talk, listen to podcasts like this one, you learn. So we need to continue to learn. That was why I actually went back in the latter part of my life here and actually went for a doctorate of ministry. I knew I was not going to get done until after I had, quote unquote, retired from higher education, but that didn't matter. I wanted to be an example of somebody continuing to learn. The second L is continue to laugh. Humor is so important in our lives. There's so many health benefits to humor, but laugh also represents taking time to rest and renew ourselves. Okay, so now we got two L's: continue to learn, continue to laugh. The third L, continue to listen. And I use a picture, and if you can imagine two water sprouts coming down, one's hitting a brick, one's hitting a sponge. Well, when we are the brick, the water just kind of goes all over. Well, that's the person who's listening to respond. The person who is listening to understand is a sponge, is soaking in all the information. They have a great, Walt Whitman has a great quote, be curious, not judgmental, made famous recently on the Ted Lasso show, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yes.
And, we need to listen like a sponge. So now you got 3 L's: learn, laugh,
Have listen.
listen. The 4th L is continue to live. We need to be in the arena of life to take the chances. They're calculated, but we still have to be there. You're not going to be successful and lay a great foundation just sitting back on the sideline thinking, oh, it's going to happen. No, you have to step into the arena. And so we need to continue to live. Okay, so now you got 4 of the L's: learn, laugh,
Laugh,
listen,
listen,
and live.
live.
And the 5th L, continue to love. And I'm talking about agape love, the love of empathy, compassion, care, sacrificing for others. Not that you're not going to do things for yourself, because we already talked about laugh, that rest, renew, all right, take care of yourself, but you need to love. And that is, when you think of servant leadership, well, service is love made visible. And so when you have these 5 L's, learn, laugh, listen, live, and love,
Love.
you have provided yourself a foundation. And just like a little kid, there's got to be a prize at the bottom of this cereal box. Well, there is a bonus L. When you keep your minds open, your hearts open, and your souls open to the 5 L's, you will receive the L of legacy. A legacy not only that you leave unto others, but more importantly, the legacy others leave onto you. So there's your handful of L's.
Wonderful, wonderful. I just love that. And guys, I hope that has resonated with you all in some way. Mike, just being mindful, I would have loved to continue with it, but what we have just heard is absolutely a masterclass. If I'm saying in a short word, it's about servant leadership. Through the journey, what we have just seen Mike talking about is how he has learned, experienced, seeing the setbacks and the challenges. And yes, these are inevitable in all our lives. He also, which I'd forgotten to mention, was every day in every way. That's his basic philosophy,
Yep.
defining living life, creating a transformation within and out in betterment, community. And again, when we talk about life, as I always say, is that life is for living, not for existing. So when we are living, we are out over there collaborating with others, focusing on navigating. One of the words that I've been hearing time and again is the chaos within our own self and the lives that we touch. With this, we build a foundation for leading. Again, when we talk about leading, think about servant leadership. See how the world transforms within yourself and outside. So, Mike, with this, I would say thank you so very much for your space and time. It was absolutely an honor and privilege. And, guys, as I mentioned, there is a camp of Chris Norton which is taking place in June. If you believe that you can, they are not looking out for a huge donation, but any particular help is absolutely appreciated and welcome. Something to think about and act on. Mike, thank you for your space and time.
Thomas, thank you very much. It is truly, like I said early, it's been an honor, and I'm just truly humbled to be a part of this message that you are sending across your viewership and far beyond that in regards to being resilient and rising up. I think each of us have an obligation to help serve our world so that it is a better place. And when we do that, when we take time to continue to learn and to laugh and to listen and to live and to love, we truly will be blessed by the L of legacy. And I know you are blessing others through your legacy. And so it has just truly been an honor to
Thank
be a
you.
part of this show here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike.